Don't you dare touch the food. My husband's family is coming. Hannah said it sharp enough to nick skin, one hand on her hip, the other waving a silicone spatula like a flag she'd planted on my kitchen island. My kitchen. Steam curled off the casserole I'd just pulled, my late Jim's old apron still tied around my waist. Marco's parents were due in 20 minutes. I wiped my hands on the apron and stepped back like I was the help. The spatula clacked down on the counter. Mom, I mean it. Go sit, you'll mess up the plating. I didn't fuss. I've learned that loud folks get quiet when you give them nothing to push against. But I notice things. I always do. The tray counts didn't match the guest list. 16 place settings, 24 rolls. 2 extra foil pans on the back porch table taped shut with sticky notes. Delgado, 7:30, and Mejia, 8:15, like pickup times. On the stove, a pot of my gumbo. Only the label on the spice blend jar was wrong. My handwriting never loops the G like that. I slid my wedding band finger along the edge of the island, catching a list half tucked under a dish towel. Family, 5:30, it said. Beneath it, pickups, 7:30, 8:15. Pickups. For what? My gaze drifted to the pantry. An insulated bag leaned there, one of those big black ones DoorDash drivers use. It wasn't ours, I did as told. I sat in the den and let the house hum. The front ring chime pinged. Marco strode past to the door. Hannah swept in and out, bright smile, tight jaw. Rosa and Victor Delgado arrived with a box of pastries and enough compliments to wallpaper a small room. Everything smells wonderful, Dorothy, Rosa called, shrugging off her wrap. Hannah has your magic touch. Thank you, Rosa, I said. It's Dot. My grandson Eli, all sandy cowlicks and gap-toothed grin, hopped onto the couch, breath smelling faintly of cinnamon. Grandma, did you see? Mom says we're fancy now. We have a menu. A menu? I asked, but he was off chasing the cat. The oven timer beeped. Hannah rushed through the archway, past me, tossed, "Don't get up," over her shoulder like a bone. I didn't get up. I pulled out my phone instead. At 5:17 p.m. ET, a little green ping popped on my screen from my credit union app. Monthly alert, I thought. But the descriptor wasn't familiar. Zell. Delgado Fam Catering. 180 jurors. My heart hiccuped. I hadn't sent money. I tapped through with my glasses low on my nose. The transaction details showed TXID, 7C3A AL29 85GF. Memo, deposit, timestamp 17/16/42, ET. The linked account was mine. I tightened Jim's soft, thinning apron strings. That apron had been all over our home, turkey brines and birthday cakes, late-night grilled cheeses when our Hannah had been up studying for the SATs. I could still hear Jim humming to cool the bread, fake blowing like a kid. He'd tap the crust and say, "Hear that, Dot? Music." If he'd been here, he'd have kissed my temple and said, "Let folks be." Then look twice. I looked twice. On the counter, above the dishwasher, I could see the corner of a printed page peeking from under a potholder. The heading, in Canva's cheery font, read, Delgado Family Catering, Spring Menu. Under it, little watercolor icons of rosemary and thyme. My gumbo had a name now, apparently. Dot's Bayou Bowl. There was a price beside it. When Marco's parents slipped into the dining room with Eli, Hannah finally came back for me, palms open like she was peace itself. "Mom," she said softly, "just trust me tonight, okay? I want it to be perfect." "Me too," I said. "Where'd you get the menu?" Her eyes flicked. It was fast. If I hadn't raised her, I might have missed it. Marco made a joke menu. "For fun." "And the pickup times?" I asked. She grabbed a dish towel, wiped what wasn't there. "What pickup times?" Right then, my neighbor Camille, Mrs. Beasley to most, the woman who waters her hydrangeas at 6 a.m. sharp, texted, "Evening. Dot. Saw a white SUV come by your back drive twice last week around 8 p.m. Didn't want a nose, but you okay?" Camille is not a nosy sort. She's a retired nurse who knows the difference between minding your business and checking a pulse. "Everything's fine," I texted back, though it didn't feel true on my tongue. Dinner ran pretty as a picture until you noticed the brush strokes. Rosa praised the shrimp. Victor said the gumbo was authentic, which is a funny thing to say in a house that smells like my roux. Hannah beamed and I kept my smile even. Marco filled glasses. Eli told jokes. And when I carried the pecan pie toward the table, my pie, Hannah eased in, hands on the tin. "I'll plate, Mom." Her nails clicked the metal like tiny knives. Just don't fuss." I let go. Then I watched her slice exactly half, box up the other half, tape it shut, and slide the box into that black insulated bag by the pantry door. The Ring camera blinked green when the back door opened at 7:32 p.m. I met Jim at a fish fry behind the church gym when I was 22 and swore I'd never marry a man who salted before he tasted. He never did. That's how we lasted 41 years. We cooked our way through every scare, every thin month, every teenage storm. When Hannah was 14, she started labeling the Tupperware. We thought it was cute. Future CEO, Jim said. She liked control, liked a plan. In her senior year, she made spreadsheets for prom costs, and when we got her that little Honda, she color-coded the maintenance schedule. Some kids rebel by staying out. Ours rebelled by making rules. After Jim passed 5 years ago, I started writing recipe cards longhand for Eli. Grandma's library, he calls it. A card for gumbo, one for cornbread, one for the pecan pie whose filling whispers when you jiggle it. Those cards sit in an old cigar tin, rubber-banded. Lately, they'd looked disturbed, edges not aligned, like someone had rifled through and jammed them back without regard for the order I keep. The day after the dinner, when the house was quiet and Hannah was at work at the clinic, I opened my laptop at the kitchen table with a mug of coffee. I typed Delgado Family Catering into Instagram search. Up came a page with 6 posts and a story highlight called Drop-Offs. The profile pic: Hannah in my kitchen, apron crisp, hair perfect, the good cutting board angled just so. The handle was Delgado Family Catering ATL. In a video, someone lifted the lid off a foil pan to reveal my gumbo, steam fogging the camera. The caption read, "A taste of tradition, orders open, menu in bio." Posted March 4th, 9:12 p.m. ET. The location tag said East Lake, Atlanta, our neighborhood. My pantry door was in the background. I took screenshots. My iPhone stamped them March 5th, 10:18 a.m. and saved the URL up top. Then I tapped the link in their bio. It opened a Google form, Delgado Family Catering, order request. Required fields included menu item, pickup time, and payment method, Zelle, Venmo. At the bottom there was a note, licensed under Dorothy Hargrove, serve safe. My name. A license I hadn't taken in a decade. I clicked over to my Gmail, heart doing a quick step. In all mail, a subject line caught me. Serve safe certification. Welcome back. I hadn't seen it. Probably skimmed past last week. I opened it. The header trail showed, received from mail.servesafe.edu. 198, I mind 123. By mxgoogle.com with ESMTPS ID. Be ready for 2001 AZ165 House D Carnained. Truth Tweetchi 25 03.02. Chochi 2 Karchi Channel 3 0400. Version TLS 13. Cipher TLS ACE 256 GCM SG3R84. Bits 25v6 256. Date Sun Mar 2 2025 10:14 p.m. ET2. Dorothy Hargrove. Subject: Welcome back to ServeSafe. The body said, your course access has been activated by Administrator Hannah Delgado using account email hannah.di. It listed an IP address, 73.219.14.118. Our ISP starts with 73. That stung. I took a breath, stood, and poured the rest of my coffee down the sink. No sense pretending I didn't see what I saw. I forwarded the email to a new folder I named Kitchen, Evidence, then printed the message with headers intact. The printer coughed and flashed low ink, and I told it, me too, then fetched the spare cartridge from the hall closet. At noon, Camille knocked. 3 soft taps that said, "Neighbor, not cop." I let her in. "You got a minute?" she asked, setting down a little tin of shortbread. "I didn't want to pry last night, but that bag by the door? You saw it too," I said. She nodded, lips pressed. "Twice last week? A fellow in a white Tahoe came by, stayed 2 minutes tops. I was taking the trash, and he carried out foil pans. Didn't look sneaky so much as fast. Do you remember the time?" She checks her watch like time is a thing you can keep in a pocket. Tuesday was 8:17. I was in my robe, embarrassing as that is, and I looked because my porch light came on. Friday, 7:54. I took a photo of the Tahoe because we had those break-ins last month. She pulled up her phone. There it was, taillights flaring in the back drive. The photo metadata read Feb 28, 7:54 p.m., with our fence in the frame. "Camille," I said, "would you mind texting me that? And if you're comfortable, would you write a note with the dates and times? Just in case I need to." Sort of misunderstanding. That's how I said it. A misunderstanding. Because calling it theft would have split something I didn't know if I could mend. That afternoon, I called my bank and asked for Lionel Kerr, the fraud specialist who helped me when Jim's old debit card number got skimmed at a gas pump. He has a way of explaining things that feels like someone sliding a chair back for you at a crowded table. "Ms. Hargrove," he said after I told him the story with just the facts, "you can set a hard alert on Zelle so you get a push anytime a transfer is initiated. Also, we can review any new Zelle nicknames associated with your account in the last 30 days. I'm seeing one here. Delgado Fam added Feb 21, 9:06 p.m. ET from device ID ending 63. Is that you?" "No, sir," I said, my mouth going dry. "I'll put a freeze on non-whitelisted nicknames. In the meantime, write down the transaction IDs, timestamps, and descriptors. If you can save your statements to PDF and keep the file hashes..." "The what now?" "Digital fingerprints," he said. "If anyone ever claims you altered them, we can match hashes. I'll email you instructions." I wrote it all down, each detail like a stitch holding me together. When the email came, I followed his steps, saved the statements, and used the little hash tool he linked. For March statement.pdf, the Shea 2556 fingerprint started 2C4F9A. I wrote it into a notebook in block letters. Then I slid a clean USB drive into my laptop and saved everything there too, labeling it Kitchen USB-A with a piece of masking tape. At 3:40 p.m., another ping. Zelle. Delgado Fam Catering, $120. TXID 9J7B3M2211DK. Memo, balance for Dots Bayou Bowl. My chest tightened so fast I had to sit. The memo calling it mine did something to my lungs. I didn't confront Hannah that minute. Gaslighting works best if you make it big and loud, and I wasn't about to give her a stage. Instead, I put on my shoes and walked to the church, where the kitchen smells like dish soap and memory. Chef Regina Cole, who runs our community suppers, was prepping for youth night, chopping onions with a speed that would shame a magician. "You look like you need to talk, Dot," she said, eyes kind but not pitying. I told her the facts. She listened without flinching. "People get into sticky things for reasons that make sense to them in the moment," she said finally. "Doesn't make it right. Here's my advice. Stop arguing feelings for now. Build your file. Protect your accounts. And if you want to handle it without turning it into a family food fight," she winked, "you set the table yourself. Neutral ground. Let the evidence speak while the food cools." "How?" I said. "Church hall," she said, like it was obvious. "We host a tasting night every month. You sponsor the next one. Invite Marco's folks. Invite Hannah, of course. Invite Camille. Invite your banker if he'll come. Keep it sweet. Serve a single signature dish and hand out printed menus that include a tiny line at the bottom. Licensed under Dorothy Hargrove. Permission required for commercial use." Then, calmly, during thanks, you tell the truth and show your chain of custody like you're reading a recipe. I felt my lips curve for the first time all day. "You make it sound simple." "It's not," she said, wiping her knife. "But simple is how people hear you." When I got home, Hannah was already there, leaned against the island, arms crossed, jaw set. "Mom, we need to talk," she said. like I was the one who'd carved my name off the mail. You embarrassed me last night. Standing around like a judge, I set my purse down carefully. Hannah, did you use my name on a ServSafe certification? Her laugh was too quick. Are you serious? You've had that credential forever. You said, "Here are the email headers," I said, sliding the printout across. Received by stamp, date, time, IP. It shows you activated it. She pushed it back with a single finger. You don't understand how these systems work, Mom, and you've been forgetful lately. I didn't take that bait. Did you add a Zelle nickname called Delgado Fam to my account? Why would I know your bank stuff? Text CD 7C3A AL2985GF at 5:16 p.m. Eat yesterday says otherwise? I kept my tone as even as sweet tea. I'm asking you to stop. We can talk about what you need, but stop. She blew air through her teeth, eyes going shiny. You're trying to ruin my marriage. Do you know what Marco's parents think of me already? I was trying to show them I could host. That I'm not some freeloader. Her voice broke on the last word, real feeling peeking out like a slip under a too-short skirt. You have all this tradition, she said, swinging her arm at the kitchen like it accused her. And they respect you more than me. They respect me because I don't take what isn't mine, I said. Soft, not cruel. She swallowed hard. You're making a mountain. I'll take the page down. Happy? She grabbed her phone and tapped. There. It's gone. I'd already saved the screenshots with timestamps and URLs. Deleting a post doesn't unbake a pie. Thank you for taking it down, I said. We'll keep talking. For now, I'm making boundaries. No selling food out of this house. No using my name on anything. If you need help, ask me. If you need money, we can discuss it. But you will not touch my accounts. She went still. Then the mask slipped back on. Fine, she said. But you don't get to sabotage me. Mercy, I said, more to myself than to her. There's no glory in winning a fight you don't need. I picked up Jim's apron from the chair back and folded it slow. I'm going to host a small tasting at church next Thursday. I'd love you there. We'll keep it calm. We'll set the table right. Her mouth twitched. I have Pilates, she said, like we were scheduling a pedicure. We'll see, I said. And I smiled in a way I hadn't in months. Not because this was over, but because I finally knew which recipe I was following. The next morning, I tucked the kitchen USB-A in my purse and walked to the bank. Lionel met me in the small glass office off the lobby, the kind where plants go to retire. He wore a tie with tiny sailboats and the kind of expression people use when they know a conversation is going to bruise. Ms. Hargrove, he said, I can't give you anyone else's data, but I can show you yours and how to protect it. He printed a Zelle activity sheet with TX IDs, timestamps, ET, nicknames, and device IDs. The last 5 entries showed Delgado Fam receiving deposits, memos such as Dot's Bayou Bowl, and Pecan Half Pickup. He circled the nicknames column. We'll whitelist only your church and utility payees for now, he said. And here, he slid over a 1-page instruction on dispute process. If this expands, you file a written affidavit and attach copies of your PDFs with the ESHE 256 fingerprints you created. I thanked him and, because I was raised right, brought him a slice of pie wrapped in wax paper. My diet thanks you later, he said, smiling. On March 7th at 7:52 p.m., my ring notified, back door, person detected. I watched the clip frame by frame. The timestamp burned into the corner. Blue digits 19:52:11 synced to network time. A man in a white Tahoe stepped into view with his collar up against the chill. He knocked once on the back door like he'd done it before. Hannah opened it, kept her voice low, and passed him 2 foil pans. In my own kitchen, my gumbo moved out of my life in a stranger's hands. I didn't race into the hall, didn't call her a thief. I let the video save, then copied it to the USB. I wrote on a yellow sticky, Ring, Mar 7, 1952, 2 pans, white Tahoe, and stuck it to the drive case like a label in my card catalog. The next day, I went to see Asha Patel Eskir at a storefront office near the library. She specializes in consumer protection and has a voice you'd trust with your mortgage and your secrets. I laid out my binder, printed email headers, bank TXIDs, screenshots with URLs, XEF-tagged photos of the mislabeled spice blend, and Camille's signed note with her phone's photo metadata scribbled at the bottom. I don't want to ruin my daughter, I said, and I don't want this to keep happening. 2 lanes, Asha said, tapping her pen. 1. Identity misuse. If your ServSafe or any permitting was used under your name to conduct business without consent. 2. Unauthorized access to your banking profile. The first is often solved with a cease and desist, plus a written permission policy for your name and recipes. The second we buttress with the bank's controls and a formal record of your complaint. We keep your tone calm, facts documented, no adjectives. I liked that. No adjectives sounded like the opposite of gaslighting. We drafted a short letter together, me at the table with my glasses on a chain, Asha typing. Subject: unauthorized use of name and food safety credential. It read, in part, I, Dorothy Hargrove, do not consent to the use of my name, likeness, or past or present certifications for commercial food sales. Any menu items marketed as Dots or Dorothy's may not be sold except by me or with written permission. Plain, adult, final. I brought it home in a manila folder and slid it under a magnet on the fridge, level with the save the date for a cousin's wedding. I wasn't hiding. If Hannah wanted to read it, she could, and if she wanted to ignore it, she'd have to do it in daylight. For a while, she behaved. April went ordinary. School drop-offs, church bingo, 2 rainy Saturdays that made the hydrangeas show off. Then, on May 10th, 6:03 p.m., a DoorDash merchant invite hit my inbox. Subject: Welcome Dot's Kitchen, complete your menu. I hadn't applied for diddly squat. The received by header showed mail7.doordash.com by mx.google.com. Date: Fry, May 10th, 6:03 p.m. ET. The application name field read Dot's Kitchen, East Lake. My jaw clenched so hard my ears rang. I walked into the den where Hannah and Eli were playing Mario Kart and turned down the TV. Sweetheart, I said, even as my throat fuzzed. Did you put my name on a DoorDash application? On screen, her character fell off a cliff. She didn't look at me. No. I'm going to show you the header, I said, not raising my voice. And the application name. Maybe someone else used Dots coincidentally. Mom? She snapped, eyes hard. Nobody wants your old church recipes on DoorDash. Eli shot me a mortified look and then studied his controller like it was a test. Buddy, I said gently, go wash up for dinner. When he left, Hannah sagged just a hair. I'm under pressure, she said low. Marco's new department dinners are all about who brings what, who knows the good places. If I made something that impressed his parents, maybe they'd stop. Comparing, you know they think you hung the moon. Baby, I said, and the word was so old it felt like a porch light flipping on. You could tell me that without building a secret restaurant in my pantry? She laughed, short and mean. You always make it sound like a sermon. Then I need a shorter verse, I said. No more using my name or recipes commercially. If you want to cook under your name, I'll teach you. If you want to cater, we'll look at permits. But you won't use my accounts. Her nostrils flared. Fine. She stormed off. The front door clicked with that deliberate slam people do when they think the door should take their side. 2 days later, May 12th, 8:47 p.m., Camille texted. White Tahoe again. Same man, 2 pans. She attached a new photo. The XEF showed 2047. It is a talent to feel 2 things at once, love like bone and fury like a bee in your shirt. I saved the photo, wrote the time, and added it to Kitchen USB-B, a second drive. If I'd learned anything from Jim's time as a deacon treasurer, it's to have a backup for your backup. By June, the Instagram page had been scrubbed, but archive.org had a capture. I submitted the URL and the snapshot loaded, the menu, the prices, the post dates. I saved the Wayback timestamp in my notebook, archive 2025-0602, 1403.17, and printed the page. Chain of custody isn't glamorous, but neither is laying bricks. And yet that's how churches get built. On July 1st, Pastor Lila announced a community taste night for December 10th to raise funds for the youth trip. That was our neutral ground. I signed up for one slot, Dots Bayou Bowl, and booked the church hall like a wedding. I called Chef Regina, who offered to help me with portion control, service flow, and a small mic so I could talk without raising my voice. "You're not staging a trial," she said. "You're hosting a supper with some true things at the end." From August through October, I wrote a handful of small boundary scripts, things I could say without getting pulled into a wrestling match. "Hannah, I love you. I'm not debating my memory today. If you need money, ask me and we'll put it in writing. Please, send that in a text so I can keep track. I'll answer this after dinner. I'm not consenting to the use of my name or recipes for sale. I kept them on. Index cards in the recipe tin, right beside the gumbo card, like seasoning packets for hard conversations. On November 18th, 3 weeks before the taste night, I found a Google Sheet on our shared home laptop. Delgado Catering, Client Ledger. My stomach dipped. I clicked. Names I recognized from the PTA, or from pews 2 rows up, were listed with dates, menus, pickup times, and payments. Zelle, Venmo. At the top, a note. Costs. Grocery 40%, labor 10%, profit 50%. I didn't raise my voice. I hit File, Download, PDF, checked the Show Grid Lines box, and saved. Then I took a photo of the laptop screen with my phone so the timestamp and the file path were visible. Users, Hannah, downloads, ledger, client.pdf. I printed that too, wrote photograph taken Nov 18/21/06 ET on the bottom, and placed it in the binder. That night at dinner, I tried again to keep it human. "Hannah," I said, passing the peas, "I'm sponsoring the church taste night December 10th at 6. I'd like you there. Rosa and Victor are invited too." She speared a pea and didn't look up. "I'm busy. Busy like Pilates?" I said, a smile floating up before I could stop it. She smirked despite herself. "Busier." "Either way," I said, "there'll be gumbo." Thanksgiving came with sweet potatoes and side-eye. We hosted because I can't bear to see a turkey abused. Rosa and Victor arrived with flowers and opinions. "The table, Hannah, perfection," Rosa said. "And the rolls. So professional. You must have learned from your mother." Hannah's smile tightened. I set the gravy down and changed the subject to weather like it was a parachute. After dishes, Marco found me in the laundry room where I hide for quiet. "Dot," he said, leaning on the door jamb, "whatever's going on between you and Hannah, I know she's trying." "Trying what, honey?" "To be enough?" he said, picking lint off his sleeve like it might tell him the answer. "My folks, well, you know, I do," I said. "People mean well and land like bricks. Are you aware she's selling food from this house?" His eyes flickered. I saw there what I'd seen in Hannah. Something he knew but wanted someone else to say first. "She told me it was a pop-up thing. She said you were on board. Then she told you wrong." He ran a hand through his hair. "Can we fix it quietly?" "That's the only way I know," I said. In the first week of December, I made copies. If paper could hum, my printer would have been a choir. I hole-punched email headers, bank TXIDs with descriptors, DoorDash invite, archive.org capture, Google form, Google Sheet Ledger PDF, ring stills, Camille's notes with photo XIF, and a photo of my recipe tin with the index cards. Recipes on one side, boundary scripts on the other. I labeled tabs like library sections, bank, digital, witness, video, policies. I slid a one-page opening statement into the pocket. "Thank you for coming. My name is Dorothy Hargrove. Tonight is about protecting my name and my kitchen with kindness and truth. If Hannah was going to say I fabricated anything, she'd have to wrestle the timestamps, the network received stamps, and the file hashes I'd printed at the top of each section. Bank 2025 Todd Mar PDF, Eshe 256 2C4F9A, like a little barcode of honesty. On December 9th, I left a voicemail for Asha. "I'm following your plan. Calm voice, public neutral ground. Pray for my nerves. She texted back a thumbs up and a praying hands emoji that looked like two spatulas high-fiving. The day of December 10th, I woke early, set stock to simmer, and tied on Jim's apron like armor. The church hall smelled like floor wax and possibility. Chef Regina had arranged a U-shaped tasting table so folks could face each other and me. A small projector pointed at a portable screen where I'd cued a still of the ring clip, not to humiliate anyone, but to show what time looks like when it tells the truth. At 5:40 p.m., Rosa and Victor arrived first, as is their brand, bearing a poinsettia and a hovering cloud of perfume. Marco came soon after, adjusting his cufflinks like they might help him dodge bullets. Hannah came last, lipstick flawless, chin up. She looked at the tables, the modest little Dots Bayou Bowl placards I'd printed, and her mouth went white around the edges. "You're making a show," she whispered. "I'm making supper," I said. The truth rides along. The youth set out water pitchers. Camille slipped in, patted my elbow, and found a seat where she could see my face. Asha came in quietly, not in a lawyer suit but in a sweater that said friend. Even Lionel showed in his sailboat tie, which felt like luck. At 6:05, I rang a spoon against a glass. The sound was small and kind. "Friends," I said, "thank you for coming. Before we eat, just a word." I looked at Hannah, not past her. "This is my daughter Hannah, and I love her. Tonight's not a courtroom. It's a kitchen with witnesses." A half smile passed over Marco's mouth like a cloud. "We're going to taste one dish," I continued. "And then I'm going to tell you 3 true things." I nodded to Regina, who ladled gumbo into little compostable cups. The room murmured the way a room does when it recognizes a home smell. When the spoons quieted, I lifted a hand. "First truth, names matter." I clicked the projector. On the screen, the Instagram menu with Dots Bayou Bowl and a price. Under it, the bio note, licensed under Dorothy Hargrove, serve safe. The URL showed at the top, the archived timestamp at the bottom. "I did not consent to this," I said, voice steady. "I have since written a policy to that effect." I held up the one-pager and placed copies on the table near the napkins like it was salt folks could reach for. Second truth, money leaves a trail. I held up the bank printout. The projector showed a page with the TXID 7C3A AL29 85GF, 171642 ET, memo deposit, descriptor Zell Delgado Fam Catering. "This is from my account," I said. "Mr. Kerr here helped me secure it. We're not discussing anyone else's bank info, just my own." Third truth, timestamps don't pick sides. I clicked again. The ring still appeared with the blue digits 1952-11, 2 pans passing through my back door on March 7th. "This is my camera," I said. "This is my kitchen." The room took a long breath together. Hannah folded her arms tight, then relaxed them a notch like she'd remembered people were watching. Rosa's eyes filled and spilled. Victor stared at the floor as if the truth might be written on linoleum. I did not say theft. I did not say shame. I let the facts stand up like grown-ups. "Hannah," I said softly, "do you dispute any of what's on the screen?" Her chin dipped, then rose. "I took the page down," she said, barely above a whisper. "I shouldn't have used your name. I wanted to be impressive." She looked at Rosa, then back at me. "I'm sorry." There, in that quiet, gaslighting fizzled like a match in a rainstorm. "You can't argue with timestamps and headers and the weight of your mother saying I love you in public." I nodded. "Not grand, just enough." "Thank you." I turned to the room. "Here's the plan going forward," I said. "I'm keeping my accounts locked. I'm keeping my recipes mine unless I choose to share. If Hannah wants to cater under her own name, I'll help her study for her serve safe and get her permits proper. If not, we'll simply cook as a family and eat as a family. No more pickups out of my pantry." Regina clapped twice like a metronome. It broke the tension just enough for smiles to re-enter the building. After the tasting, people wandered up with napkins and small words. "That was brave," someone whispered. "That was fair," said another. Camille squeezed my hand, then wandered over to look at the binder tabs like a person admiring quilt squares. Asha stood off to the side, letting people feel like they'd thought of everything themselves. Rosa approached, clutching her purse like a lifeline. "Dorothy," she said, voice thick. "We didn't know. We never meant to." She gestured at the screen where the rings still had faded to the menu capture. "We put pressure on her. We wanted perfection. It's my sin as a mother-in-law." "Then let's retire it," I said gently. "Perfection makes liars out of people who were born honest." Victor cleared his throat. "We can help with the repayment," he said gruffly, eyes on the poinsettia as if it needed guarding. I lifted my chin. "Thank you," I said, and I meant it, but I also meant the next sentence more. "The repayment is between me and Hannah. The boundary is between me and everyone." Marco came over, hands open. I should have asked better questions," he said. "I'm sorry." "Next time," I said. "You ask the good ones sooner. You're a good man. Show it early." Hannah stood near the serving table, spine straight, tears threatening but undecided. I let her stand uncomfortably long. Shame is a poor teacher, but silence is a fair mirror. When I went to her, I kept my voice at kitchen volume. "I love you," I said. "I will love you before and after this conversation." She hiccuped a laugh cry. "You always say things like a pastor." "That's because I've heard a lot of sermons," I said, smiling. "Here's what's next." I slid a paper across the table, a simple repayment plan we'd drafted with Asha in her office that week. Amount: the total of the deposits that had landed in my account. Terms: 6 months, no interest, weekly payments of a number we'd mathed to be firm but survivable. Condition: she completed ServeSafe under her own name and attended a county-permitting workshop. If she catered again from my kitchen, we'd write a rental agreement like grown-ups with signatures and dishwashing clauses. She put her fingertip on the paper, then looked at me like a kid at the deep end. "I can do that," she said, voice thin. "We'll do it," Marco said, though his voice trembled on the we. I watched him clock the number and swallow. Pride makes some men loud. It made him careful. We set Saturday, December 14th at 10 a.m. for signing. Asha would witness. Lionel would note that a formal complaint existed only if we needed it, not as a threat, but as a fence post marking the yard. On the way out, Pastor Lila hugged me and murmured, "I wish every reveal night tasted like gumbo." I laughed, because mercy. Same. At home, after the dishes were washed and Eli tucked in, he hadn't been there. This was grown-up business. I sat in my den with the lights low. Jim's old baseball cap hung on the hook by the door, brim bent just so. "Well, love," I said into the quiet. We didn't shout. We didn't lie. We didn't let the facts get lonely. The next morning, Hannah brought coffee without being asked. "Mom," she said, not looking at me. I changed the password to my email. I enrolled in ServeSafe under my own name. The confirmation came to Hannah, Delgado. "I forwarded it to you. For your binder, I guess." "Good," I said. "Do you want help studying? Chef Regina has flashcards that would make a Marine cry." She smiled despite herself. "Yes. We spent that week in the kitchen not selling, just studying and cooking. I quizzed her on minimum internal temperatures while the oven hummed. She taught me her clinic's trick for hand-washing songs. We were 2 women who'd finally put down the tug-of-war rope long enough to pass a bowl back and forth. On December 14th at 10:03 a.m., we met Asha at her office. We signed the repayment plan, wrote the first check, and made copies for everyone. The copier spat out papers like confetti at a sober parade. We shook hands. "We'll revisit in March," Asha said. "If payments are steady, we declare the thing whole." Outside, the air bit our cheeks. Hannah looked at me across the hood of the car. "I did a pretty dumb thing," she said. "You did a human thing," I said. Now you're doing a grown-up thing. She nodded. That church night, when you said names matter, it felt like I was flashing back to ninth grade debate, except I was wrong. Baby, you weren't on trial, I said. You were at supper with evidence. That night, Eli crawled onto the couch and put his head in my lap. Grandma, he said into the fabric of my skirt, are we okay? We're better than okay, I said, stroking his hair. We learned a hard recipe, and now we know it by heart. The new year came in with fireworks that sounded like a pot rack falling. In January, Hannah passed Serve Safe. The email dinged at 3:11 p.m. ET. She forwarded it. I printed and slid it under policies in the binder with a note. Hannah, own name, Jan 12, 3:11 p.m. She attended the county permitting workshop on January 23rd. The attendance roster had her signature, and I copied it because old habits die protected. On the last Saturday in February, Rosa and Victor invited us to their house for dinner. I wore my good cardigan and brought flowers the color of sherbet. Rosa cooked chicken in saffron and didn't say a word about perfection. In the middle of the meal, Victor lifted his glass. To Dorothy, he said, for teaching us that boundaries can be hospitable. If that man had proposed marriage right then, I might have said yes, kidding, Lord, but my heart swelled like a Sunday hat. Hannah started a tiny business under Hannah Delgado Kitchen, no dot in sight. She rented the church kitchen. When she needed a bigger space, signed the form like a real renter, and wiped down every surface until you could see your worry leave your face. Sometimes she asked to use my gumbo base by permission, and sometimes I said yes, and sometimes I said no, depending on how my day was shaped. Each yes made both of us stand taller. Each no did too. There were slip-ups. One Tuesday in March, she texted me, "Can I borrow your spice blend?" And I said, "Borrow," with a little smile in the bubble because language matters. She replied, "May I purchase 2 jars?" I said, "Yes, $8 each." We did a silly little bank transfer like strangers until it felt normal to transact cleanly with people you love. Camille kept watering her hydrangeas at 6 a.m., though she started bringing a mug of coffee to my fence as if to say, "I am here to witness your ordinary." We began walking in the evenings, 2 old birds taking laps around the block like we were counting our blessings. Lionel called in April. "Ms. Hargrove," he said, "just checking that the Zelle remains locked." It did. He told me the bank was adding a biometric option to the app. I told him my thumbs were ready. Sometimes gaslighting tries to climb back in through a cracked window. In May, a cousin at a barbecue asked, "So, Hannah's catering your recipes, right? Family business?" Hannah shot me a look over the potato salad that said, "You tell it." I smiled and said, "Hannah runs Hannah Delgado Kitchen. I sometimes license a recipe. We write it down. That's the family business. Clarity." The cousin blinked, then nodded like she'd learned a new dance step. On a quiet June evening, I pulled out Jim's apron and smoothed the fabric where his hands used to rest. I slid a new index card into the tin, written in my neat teacher print, "Boundary Broth." Start with facts, headers, timestamps, TXIDs. Season with calm. No adjectives you can't prove. Simmer in neutral space with witnesses. Serve with repayment plan and future rules. Garnish with grace small enough to swallow. I tucked the card behind the gumbo recipe because sometimes the seasoning goes on the table after the food arrives. In the middle of July, Hannah showed up with a new knife roll and the kind of grin that doesn't come cheap. "Mom," she said, "first paid gig under my own name that didn't make me feel like I was stealing sunlight. 20 people. I did all the temp logs. Look." She held up her clipboard like a report card. Date, time, holding temps, corrective, actions, the little adult things that make a kitchen safe and a person honest. "I'm proud of you," I said, because what else do you say when someone brings you the truth on a tray? That night, I sat on the back steps with a glass of iced tea. The world smelled like cut grass and hot tomatoes. The back door swung open, and Hannah came out, hands in her pockets. She stood beside me, shoulder to shoulder, like we were watching fireworks that hadn't started yet. "I thought if I controlled the kitchen, I could control how people loved me," she said finally. "Turns out you can only control the recipe, not the appetite." "Mercy," I said. "You sound like a bumper sticker, but you're not wrong." We watched a moth beat itself to confusion around the porch light, and then settle, tired, but alive. "Do you ever get mad at me?" she asked. "That I bossed you around in your own house?" "Of course," I said, "because lying is extra trash to take out. But I'm more grateful we fixed the leak than I am mad about the puddle." She leaned her head on my shoulder like she hadn't since high school. "Thanks for not making me a villain." "Baby," I said, "villains are for cheap paperbacks. You're my child." When I finally climbed into bed, I whispered to the ceiling, "We kept the kitchen and the kid." The house answered in the language of settling wood. Somewhere out there, Jim's laugh folded into the night. In the morning, I cooked Dot's Bayou bowl for us and a pot for the church pantry. I put a sticky on the lid. "For sharing, ask Dot." It wasn't a threat, it was a promise. We ate at the table we'd almost given up, under the light we'd changed together. Eli told some terrible joke about a gumbo that wanted to be a stew. We groaned on cue because mercy, family has just rehearsed groaning with better snacks.